Hey guys, we have an SAT test coming up soon, so we're going to do some SAT practice together. Before we just jump into the test though, let's talk a little bit about the SAT, specifically the math portion. The math portion of the SAT is worth 800 of the total points. You should go into this with some idea in mind of how well you want to score. If you're able to score a 600 out of the 800, that's a pretty good score. It's above average. It's going to have you competitive trying to get into most schools, or into a lot of schools at least. And it really, though, depends on what class you're in right now. If you've been through most of Algebra 2, then maybe it's that 600 range that you're looking for. If you've gotten a little farther than that, maybe you're shooting for a 700 or more. If you're shooting for a 600, it really only takes about 38 questions correct out of 58. And that's actually a 65%, so that's pretty much like getting a D, and you're going to have a pretty competitive score. If you're shooting for that 700, you're going to have 50 correct, and 50 out of the 58, now you're talking about 86, so you're talking about a pretty high B. But it's doable, okay? So these are scores that we can get. The fact that you don't have to get them all correct should just kind of relax you a little bit and say, hey, I can even potentially skip some questions and still get a pretty competitive score. The way the math test is set up, the easiest questions are first, and it just works its way up in difficulty as it goes along. Okay, so you're going to have these multiple choice questions that get higher and higher in difficulty. Then when the multiple choice is done, you have some free response where you grid and answer, and those start over, easiest to hardest. Okay, and it works that way on the no calculator test. Then you take the calculator test, and it's the same. Easiest questions first, it works its way up in difficulty. As you get toward the end, you get to some more difficult questions. If you don't have time to do them all even, that's okay. You don't have to get them all correct. Now, if you're shooting for that 800, you have to get 58 out of 58. So, of course, you want to get them all correct in that case. But you should be able to relax and just know you don't have to be perfect to get a competitive score on this test. Okay, now we're going to do the no calculator portion together. On the first page, they're going to have these formulas for you. More often than not, you're not really going to need to use these formulas. You might use one or two. You might not use any at all. Okay, so we turn the page and go on to the first page of problems. So problem number 1, if x minus 1 over 3 equals k, and k equals 3, what is the value of x? So they're saying let's take this value of k here and plug it in. So you've got x minus 1 over 3 equals k, which is 3. Okay, so we're just going to multiply both sides by 3 to cancel this out here. And we get x minus 1 equals 9, and we add that 1, and we get x is 10d. Okay, so you can see we're starting with some simpler problems, and we'll just work our way up from here. Okay, for I equals the square root of negative 1, what is the sum of these two expressions? I'm just going to combine like terms. 7 plus negative 8 is negative 1. That rules these out. 3 plus 9 is 12. So I get negative 1 plus 12i. On Saturday afternoon, Armand sent M text messages each hour for 5 hours. So however many messages he sent per hour, multiply that by 5. Tyrone sent P text messages each hour for 4 hours. Okay, so he did 4 hours times P messages per hour. How do we get the total? We add those together, 5M plus 4P. Kathy is a repair technician for a phone company. Each week she receives a batch of phones that need repairs. The number of phones she has left to fix at the end of the day can be estimated with the equation P equals 108 minus 23D, where P is the number of phones left, D is the number of days she has worked that week. what is the meaning of the value of 108 in this equation. Okay, so she starts off her week and she's got 108 minus 23 phones per day. Okay, so what's the value of 108 actually mean? Well, this is a linear equation. Negative 23 is the slope. 108 is the y-intercept, and a y-intercept is always a starting point. So that is going to be what she starts the week with. So she's going to start each week with about 108 phones to fix. Okay, so we'll go on to our next page. Which of the following is equivalent to the expression above? So let's combine some like terms. We have x squared y minus negative x squared y, so that's plus x squared y. So we have 2x squared y, so that's one of these two. We can cancel out a and b. Okay, then we have negative 3y squared minus negative 3y squared, so that's negative 3y squared plus 3y squared, and those just cancel each other out. And then we have 5xy squared minus 3xy squared, which is 2xy squared, and that is right here. It's option C. A pediatrician uses the model above to estimate the height h of a boy in inches in terms of the boy's age, a in years, between the ages of 2 and 5. Based on the model, what is the estimated increase in inches of a boy's height each year? Okay, so the estimated annual increase, that sounds like a slope to me. That is 3. The slope is 3. All right, this formula gives the monthly payment M needed to pay off a loan at P dollars, a loan of P dollars at 4% at R% annual interest over N months. Which of the following gives P in terms of M, R, and N? So in other words, we are solving for P. So we want to get P by itself. So to get P by itself, what I could do is take all of this right here and multiply its reciprocal over here. So it's going to be M times the reciprocal of this expression right here. So I'm going to have this in the numerator, so 1 plus r over 1200 to the n minus 1 in the numerator, and it looks like b is where I have that in the numerator, and then this numerator here as it comes over for the reciprocal is going to be the denominator. So we've got the reciprocal times m, option B. Okay, we'll go on to our next page, number 8. If a over b is 2, what is the value of 4b over a? Okay, so I want to find the value of 4b over a, so that's the same as 4 times b over a. Okay, and if a over b is 2, then it's also true that b over a is 1/2. Okay, so 4 times b over a is the same as 4 times 1/2. Okay, so what is the value of 4 times b over a? So I can simplify this side to 4 halves, which is 2. Number 9, what is the solution xy to this system of equations? Okay, so there's a few different ways that we could solve this. Let's just try by plugging in answers. Okay, so we can't use a calculator. We've got to do this one in our heads. So 3 times x, that's negative 15. And then plus 4 times y, which is negative 2, so plus negative 8 equals negative 23. Negative 15 plus negative 8 is negative 23. That is true. Okay, so now let's check the bottom equation. 2y, so 2 times negative 2, that's negative 4, minus x, so minus negative 5, equals negative 19. Negative 4 plus 5 equals negative 19. That's not true, so it's not A. Okay, how about 3 times 3? That's 9, plus 4 times negative 8, that's negative 8, 16, 24, 32. 9 plus negative 32 is negative 23. That is true. Okay, now in the second equation, 2 times negative 8, that's negative 16, minus x, which is 3, equals negative 19, and that is true, so it's option B. I won't even bother to check C or D. For the function g defined above, a is a constant, and g of 4 is 8. What is the value of g of negative 4? Okay, so g of 4, that means if I plug a 4 in right here, I'm going to get 8 for my final answer. Okay, well, what if I plug in a negative 4? Well, 4 squared and negative 4 squared are exactly the same thing. Okay, so since it's being squared, I'm going to get 16 for 4 squared, 16 for negative 4 squared. So I'm going to end up with the same output. So if g of 4 is 8, then g of negative 4 is also 8. In the equations above, B and C represent the price per pound in dollars of beef and chicken, respectively. X weeks after July 1 during last summer. What was the price per pound of beef when it was equal to the price per pound of chicken? Okay, so we can set their price per pound equal to each other. 2.35 plus 0.25x equals 1.75 plus 0.40x. Okay, so we're going to use that to solve for x, and that will help us find the price per pound of beef when it was equal to that of chicken. So minus 1.75 and minus 0.25x. Okay, so 2.35 minus 1.75, that is 0.60. And 0.40 minus 0.25 is 0.15. And we'll divide both sides by 0.15. 60 divided by 15 is 4, so 0.60 divided by 0.15 is 4. Okay, so we get that x is 4. So if x is 4, what is the price per pound of beef? So beef is 2.35 plus 0.25 times 4. 0.25 times 4 is 1, so we've got 2.35 plus 1, so 4 quarters makes $1. Plus 2.35 is $3.35. A line in the xy plane passes through the origin and has a slope of 1/7. Which of the following points lies on the line? Let's graph it. So it passes through the origin. It goes up 1 and right 7. Okay, so there's a point right there. It can also go down 1 and left 7. So there's a point right there. So there's our line. Does that pass through 0, 7? No. Does it pass through 1, 7? No. Does it pass through 7, 7? No. Does it pass through 14, 2? I don't have enough here to show that, but if it goes right 7 and up 1, it stands to reason it would go another 7, which is 14, and up another 1, which would be 2. So point D, 14, 2 is on that line. Number 13, if x is greater than 3, which of the following is equivalent to this expression? Okay, so what I would do is combine these in the denominator. In order to do that, I need a common denominator for these two fractions down here. So to get a common denominator, I'll multiply by x plus 3 on top and bottom here, and this one by x plus 2, and I'll have my common denominator. So I've got 1 over, and then I've got x plus 3 plus x plus 2, and I can actually just combine the like terms here, so that's 2x plus 5 over, and then I'll go ahead and distribute these. I have x squared plus 2x plus 3x, that's plus 5x plus 6. Okay, now I have 1 over all of that, which means it's really the reciprocal of this. So x squared plus 5x plus 6 over 2x plus 5 is my final simplification here. It is option B. If 3x minus y is 12, what is the value of 8 to the x over 2 to the y power? Okay, now when I have a fraction like this with exponents, I want these two to be in the same base. 8 is the same as 2 cubed, so this is 2 cubed to the x power over 2 to the y power. Okay, so I can simplify by bringing this, now that they're in the same base, I can bring this up here, and I can simplify this as well. So I've got 2 to the 3x power times 2 to the, and when I bring this up, the power becomes negative y power. Okay, so when I raise a power to a power, I multiply these exponents. When I bring a power from the denominator to the numerator, it changes signs. When I multiply these, I'm just going to add the powers, so I have 2 to the 3x minus y power. Okay, and I know that 3x minus y is 12. Okay, so this right here is 12, 2 to the 12th power, and that is A. Number 15, if this expression equals this expression for all values of x, and a plus b is 8, what are two possible values for c? Okay, so if this is going to be 15, then a times b has to equal 15. Okay, so we've got two different options of how you can multiply numbers to make 15. So there's 1 times 15, and there's 3 times 5. And that could be done in the other order, 15 times 1, 5 times 3. Okay, so let's put a 1 and a 15 here. Okay, so we've got 1x plus 2 times 15x plus 7. Okay, so we get our 15x squared. Okay, then we have 7x and 30x. And that's 37x. And so that means C would be 37, and I do not see that option here. C can't possibly be 37, so 1 and 15 is not going to work in either order because we've got both options here. So let's try 3 and 5. So 3x plus 2, so A is 3, B is 5, x plus 7. So there's my 15x squared. Then I have plus 21x plus 10x. So that's plus 31x. So that means C would be 31, and that's an option. So 31 and 41 must be the two possibilities for C. Okay, and now we move into the gridded response, which means we're starting over at some of the easier ones here. If t is greater than 0 and t squared minus 4 equals 0, what is the value of t? So we're just going to solve this equation. So we're going to add 4, so we get t squared equals 4. Now, when I have a square, that means I'm going to have two solutions. Okay, second power means two solutions. To get rid of that squared, I'm going to take a square root, so I have t is, my two solutions are plus or minus the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2, so it's plus or minus 2. Now it does restrict me to values of t greater than 0, so it can't be negative 2 because that's not greater than 0. So t is 2. So in my grid, I'm going to put 2. A summer camp counselor wants to find a length x in feet across a lake as represented in the sketch above. The lengths represented in this by AB, EB, BD, and CD on the sketch were determined to be these four values respectively, so it means in that order. So AB is 1800. EB is 1400. BD is 700. And CD is 800. Okay, so with all that in mind and the fact that we've got these angles here that are congruent to each other, we want to use this pair of similar triangles to find x. Okay, so I'm going to write a proportion. X corresponds with 800 and 1400 corresponds with 700. Okay, now let's simplify this right side here. So I can drop off those zeros, I can drop off those zeros, and I have 14 over 7. And that simplifies to 2 over 1. So this is going to be a much easier proportion here to do without a calculator when that's simplified to 2 over 1. Now I can cross multiply. 1 times x, 800 times 2, 1600 feet is my solution. According to the system of equations above, what is the value of x? Okay, so to get the value of x, let's eliminate the y's. So I'm going to multiply this one right here by negative 2. And I'll write it right down here. So I've got negative 2x minus 2y equals positive 18. And the y's are going to be eliminated. X minus 2x is negative x. And then negative 25 plus 18 is negative 7. So that gives me x equals 7. So that's what goes in my grid. In a right triangle, let's draw a right triangle where sine of x, so let's just put x here, sine of x is 4 over 5. Now sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Remember SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and that's 4 over 5, so opposite is 4, hypotenuse is 5. What is cosine of 90 minus x? So 90 minus x would be the complementary angle to this, so that would be this one right here. So this is 90 minus x. What is cosine of this angle? Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 4 over 5. So in the grid, you're going to do 4/5. And our last problem on this no calculator test, if a is 5 times the square root of 2 and 2a is the square root of 2x, what is the value of x? Okay, so if 2a is the square root of 2x, well, if I make this 2a right here, then I have to multiply this by 2. So 2a is 2 times 5 square root of 2, and 2a is also the square root of 2x. So 10 times the square root of 2, that's this, is equal to this. They're both equal to 2a, so they are equal to each other. Okay, now let's square both sides. So when I square this side, I get 100 times 2. When I square this side, these just cancel, and I get 2x. And when I divide both sides by 2, I get 100 equals x, so 100 is my final answer.